Hello, everyone, and welcome to the December 2025 episode of Voices of CFMA, Construction Financial Management Association's podcast featuring conversations with industry leaders, sponsored by Banger. I'm your host, Sal Marino, CFMA's Director of Communications and the Managing Editor for CFMA Building Profits magazine. This month, my guest is Kyrah Coker, CFO and President of National Roofing Partners. So, Kyrah, welcome. Why don't we just get started? What brought you into the industry and what sort of kept you here?
Oh, goodness. Let's see. I was in payphones back in the late 90s, early 2000s
Okay.
for a publicly held payphone company. I worked in the regional finance part of the business, a lot of M&A and kind of getting people integrated into systems, things of that nature. This might shock you, but payphones kind of went away when cell phones really took over. And so I find myself, looking for a new industry to get involved in. And I felt like construction would be a good industry because I was like, it will never go anywhere, right? Like you're
Right.
always going to need construction. So I started looking and found a real estate developer to work for. And that was in 2005-ish. And I mean, as they say, the rest is history. I've been in construction finance for about 20 years. I spent the first 14 years or 12 years, I should say, of my career in construction on more the, like regional contractor side. And then I came to National Roofing Partners in 2017, which is a national specialty subcontractor in commercial roofing. So a little different working on the national side versus, kind of the boots on the ground, local side. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay, I have to back up a little bit. How did you get started in payphones?
Oh, well, let's see, I think it was like 1997. My first job out of, high school was for Autodesk. So I worked as a receptionist at Autodesk in their office in Dallas, which was like a training office. And I worked there for a little while and I was like, this is for the birds. I don't want to do this long term. Right. And I found the part I enjoyed was like the finance portion of managing the front office. And I had done a lot of that for my dad's kind of family owned business growing up. So I started looking for a job in finance and I came across like a payroll processing job at a payphone company. And we were just a small mom and pop payphone company. And we got purchased by one of the large players in payphones. And I stayed there for 7 or 8 years. I really enjoyed it. I think the people, kind of like construction, it was very similar. It was just like the people. It was like a really big industry, but felt really small.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I was just, I made a comment to my 15-year-old just the other day about calling collect on a payphone. And he was like, what? I'm like, I don't even want to get into this right now.
Oh, yeah. That was big money for payphone owners, by the way. They called that dial around. And
really,
that was big money for us when people made collect calls on our payphones. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you're now both the president and CFO, right?
Yeah, I would say, CFO is probably my main function. And then president is secondary. We also have a very active, CEO that handles some of the top level leadership.
Nice.
But yeah.
That's awesome. So from your seat, what does it look like when, let's say, finance and operations are really sort of in sync at a roofing company?
It's beautiful.
Right.
Happens. It's kind of like this beautiful dance when it's working really well. And what intrigues me about getting involved in the operations side of the business is just that, right? When it's not working, everyone feels it.
Yep.
I think when it is working, people don't necessarily feel it as much. It's just working. But when it's not, everyone is aware. And so when I first came on board here, one of the areas that I was really focused on from the finance side was training the operations team on, what is work in progress and why do we need billings in and why is it important that what you're reporting is correct and your percentage is complete, and showing them like a funnel of what comes in and how it all goes through the funnel so that people get paid. And so I did a lot of that. And what I found is that providing financial knowledge and education to the operations side of the business was actually very valuable. And then we kind of started doing that also with the finance side of the business, letting them kind of learn more about the operations side, so the two of them could work a little bit more efficiently with each other.
Nice. So what are some of the levers that you watch to keep a close monitor on things that keep them healthy?
Percentage complete, and that change of percentage complete week over week is really important. I spend a lot of time looking at projected billings. Same thing, like what are we projecting to bill? And then, continuing to watch that. You're looking at it by project manager and also by account manager. Like, where are we having issues? How do we make improvements in those areas? That's usually when you start seeing that you've got an issue, is when your projected billings and percentages complete are off. There's other little things like change orders and all that, but those are the two I would say for me are the biggest indicators that like Houston, we have a problem.
Right.
Type.
Very nice. What about technology? Is there any kind of, have you seen data or technology that really changed the game for you lately?
We have every technology you can imagine, I feel like, right? So we have a very complete package of technology at our company, and almost overwhelmingly so, like so many people, right? So one of the things we've been looking at is how do we shrink our tech stack? How do we do more with what we have instead of having all of these other programs? But in the interim, until we're able to do that, we use Zoho Analytics, and it allows us to kind of create our own dashboards and bring in the data from all the different systems into one place. So our accounting manager sends out a daily report that she works with our client relationship manager on to kind of be able to see that outlook on the business. I want to see what's been billed every day. I want to see what WIP and backlog look like. And then I also want to see the pipeline for the sales side of the business along with their closing ratio, so you can really have an idea of what's moving through. And so to do that, we use the analytics software to just kind of pull everything into one spot to see it.
So I did a little research on you, and I came back with you that you spend a lot of time mentoring. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say so. Over the years, it's like a passion project.
When you talk with early career people about the industry, what surprises them most once they see how a company like yours actually works?
I think that what surprises people the most is the problems that you have in small business. You have the exact same problems in big business, right? Like, I'll talk to someone in like a small, kind of like startup phase of business, and they're talking about things like cash flow and people and processes. I'm like, raise my hand, right? We have all those same problems, I guarantee you. In fact, they're intensified, right? You just have more resources sometimes to solve the problems.
Yeah.
But they're the same.
They're there. Yeah. They're always there. What about women in the industry? What's your sense of how it's going lately in construction?
I think I have been very fortunate in my career to have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And so my goal has always been how to provide more seats at the table, how to show everyone, no matter what your race or gender, or beliefs are, that you can be there and you can have input and you can grow. I think it's changed a lot though. 10 years ago, I was the only woman sitting at the table sometimes.
Right.
And there were a lot of rooms that you were in where it was a little intimidating, and that's changed. I think women have found their voice a little bit more. Part of that is because we've grown so much. I think just as a culture, a lot
Yeah.
of households require two incomes, so there's more women
Yep.
in the workforce. But yeah, I don't know, you just have to find your voice and continue to speak up. I was recently in a room for a training, and we had a gentleman who was coming in to train our group, and he said, wow, this is a first for me. I'm the only man in this room. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's kind of crazy, but you are. And how does it feel?
Right.
He's like a little intimidating. I was like, I understand that. Trust me.
Yeah.
But no, it's just, I think more and more as a society, we're embracing the right person for the job. And I've seen a lot of progress over the last decade. So I'm happy about that.
That's great. Yeah. It's, I agree with you there. And it's, how do we provide more seats at the table?
Well, some people would say you build a long table, right? That's not always feasible. So I think it's speaking up for who the right people are at the table, no matter what's going on, right? So, sometimes you'll walk into a meeting and it's just a group that's used to being together. And so they're in this meeting because that's who you're supposed to have in the meeting. And I think it's all of us being aware to have the right people sitting there for the decisions that need to be made, and not doing what you're supposed to, but doing what actually makes sense, right? If I walk into a room and I look around and see 4 leaders within my company who are all capable of making the decision, I'm going to walk out because I'm not needed there.
Right.
And I think more and more it's just doing that, like putting the people that actually need to make the decisions and be involved in the process to have a seat at the table, and not just it be a given who's supposed to be there,
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes people get on autopilot too and just keep inviting the same people to the meetings, inviting the same people to the project. And I think it's about recognizing that too sometimes,
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you get started with CFMA?
Oh man. Once upon a time I was sitting in a room and the gentleman said, have you heard of CFMA? And I was like, I have not. What is CFMA? And he told me, and I was like, well, that sounds like really neat. And he was my boss at the time. And he said, well, I'm going to make that one of your KPIs that you need to get involved in CFMA. And so he made it one of my key performance indicators. And here we are today.
Wow. That's great.
So, yeah.
And how long have you been a member?
Oh, goodness. It's over 10 years.
Okay. All right.
I tell people all the time, I'm involved in a lot of organizations and they all provide value. CFMA is one of the ones that I feel like I'm always trying to figure out how could I provide more value to it than it provides to me. And that's just not the case. It's always giving. So it's pretty neat.
So what do you get up to when you're not working? What are your hobbies?
I like to travel.
Yeah. Nice.
I love to travel, actually. That's probably my favorite.
Are you one of those people who always needs a trip planned?
Yes. That's actually the fun in traveling, is planning the trip.
Right.
I will be on a trip in the hotel room at night, like planning my next trip, right? Like, where are we going next?
What's the best place you've been in the past couple of years?
So I had, just by happenstance, ended up in Paris for the Olympics. And
wow,
that was, again, just completely wasn't even supposed to happen. I was going somewhere else and my trip had to get changed. And I ended up in Paris, and somebody was like, I think that's at the same time as the Olympics. And I was like, oh no, really? Well, let me look into it. And it was also the same time they were putting out like a lottery for you to get tickets to the Olympics. So I got to go watch the U.S. win gold in some of the swimming competitions, and that was just like the coolest thing ever.
That's
And it happened
awesome.
completely by accident. So
Yeah. You don't hear many people saying I accidentally wound up in Paris to watch the Olympics.
right, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, that doesn't sound privileged at all, but no, it was really neat.
That's great. I love it. So if you were speaking to a room full of construction CFOs and controllers who want to grow into sort of broader leadership roles, what's one piece of advice that you would leave them with?
Be authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think as finance leaders, especially, sometimes we feel the need to fit in to the room or fit into the space. And I would challenge you to just be authentic, because people are looking for that different point of view that we bring to the table.
Very nice. While doing this podcast this year, I've been asking one question to the guests. In the future, I hope CFMA will blank. Do you have anything to fill in there?
Goodness, that's a good question. In the future, I hope CFMA will be offered in high school and colleges.
Very, very nice.
I think, the way there's like the Future Farmers of America or some of those other, it'd be great to have like Future Construction Financial Managers of America or something, right?
I agree. So do you plan to wind up in any other countries for any other sporting events anytime soon?
Hey, I would love to. We'll see. I don't have any plans, but the World Cup is just around the corner.
Right? You're like, got to plan something else and see what happens and wind up there, right?
That was neat.
That's awesome. Well, Kyrah, I really appreciate you joining me. Do you anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, thanks for having me. I just love CFMA. So thanks.
Awesome. That's great. Again, thank you. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Voices of CFMA, sponsored by Banger. If you enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share it on social media. And if you're interested in learning more about the Construction Financial Management Association, check out cfma.org. Once again, I'm your host, Sal Marino, and I will see everyone back here next month in 2026. Thanks.